Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bxb'S Bits and Bobs episode 19. It's a special episode, a romantic episode, because this is our Valentine's Day episode. It's just me and Richard hanging out on a virtual date where we talk about our feelings and how we have always felt for each other in a deeply personal way. Isn't that right, Richard?
Yeah, I think this is if you're going to watch this show on video at any time, this is the week to do it because you're not going to get the full experience in audio. When you get to the end of this show, what me and Ben are going to do, it's going to blow your mind.
Well, you've built that up. Now I'm a little bit scared. I was just doing a jokey intro, and now something's got to happen at the end of the show. Woo! Yeah, okay, so Adam's had kind of the week from hell and isn't here. Joel's away on holiday. So from the last episode in which there was 4 of us with about 10,000 games to talk about, to an episode where there's just 2 of us with hardly any games to talk about and a little bit of news. I don't know what's going to happen in this show. I think we'll probably end up just rambling off into tangents. I don't know how long we're going to go for. We'll just wing it and see what happens, won't we, Rich?
Yeah.
You cool with that? Yes.
Yeah, see how long it goes. It'll be fun.
Freeform show. Yeah, I mean, we've got some shit to talk about. I mean, I'm just going to get into it then. It's like I decided over the last couple of weeks to, in preparation for the big theatrical release of the latest installment of the franchise, I rewatched the entirety of the Resident Evil series films, from number 1 all the way through 2, 3. Yeah, there's 5 of them, I believe, before the new one, which was 6. That was an event, man. That was a thing. I like those films. They're bad, but I like. Yeah, I mean, like, it's weird. It's like they're in that same vein of movie, aren't they? As like the Underworld movies, and like Legion. If you remember that one with Paul Bettany, and the slightly weird, dark fantasy sci-fi. In this case, Resident Evil is very post-apocalyptic after the first film. Especially actually after the second film, it becomes post-apocalyptic kind of end of the world franchise. I think they're the most well-made ones. But what I love the most is how at the beginning of each film, they retcon huge elements of the previous films. So it's just this glorious "we don't give a fuck" attitude about their own continuity.
I watched one of them.
It's refreshing. Go on.
One of them on Netflix. I don't even know which one it was. It might have been the 3rd or 4th.
I can tell you. Give me a hint and I'll tell you which one, because it's all very fresh.
Okay.
It's burned into the mind. Go on.
It starts with reverse time action sequence with crashing helicopters and diving.
Oh yeah, that's Afterlife. I think that's number 4.
Yeah, I thought it was 4. And then it's got like 20 minutes of montage of the previous films. So they only had to make about an hour of footage for the new movie. So yeah. Oh, are you still there? Because you've frozen. Uh-oh. Right, guys, I don't know if anyone's still watching me, but it looks like I'm on my own. I suppose we wait a minute and see if Ben comes back. Does anyone want to dial in? Phone me on Skype or something? Yeah, anyway, Resident Evil, bad series. Ben's going to tell us about how great they become the more you watch them, and how even though they don't make sense, they kind of make sense. But he's wrong. Let's see if we can give him a call. Looks like Ben is rejoining us. And he's back.
What did you do? I mean, like, did you vamp like a champion?
Yeah, freestyle.
What did you do? Yeah, I don't know why, but my wired internet connection just dropped out, and I'm on Wi-Fi now, so quality might not be as good. But hopefully the wired connection will come back in a second. The nature of my home internet is not great, sadly. I use wired, but I use home plugs, and the electricity, the electrical kind of wiring in this house isn't fantastic, so they can sometimes just drop out. Doing it live. Thank you for hanging about, though, Richard. I appreciate
okay. That could have
I've
got
just
better.
While I was orating about the excellence of the Resident Evil films. I can't remember where I was, but I was just saying how I love how, you know, in the world of interconnected film series like Marvel stuff and Star Trek and DC are trying to do it, in a world of that where everything has to make sense, I love the fact that Resident Evil and Paul Anderson and the director of the series just doesn't give a shit. And there's something glorious about that. I mean, so I just watched the new one, which is the final chapter, right? And, you know, there's... So yeah, exactly. Interesting fact: this one was made to on a budget which was only dwarfed by the first film in the series, because they've not. The series has been actually, the last film did very well in the box office, but Sony, who makes them, have no money at the moment. So I'm amazed this film even got made. Frankly, it didn't need to. But it was but I mean, it's got a lot going for it. I mean, the box office has died horribly already domestically in the US, I was reading, but it's got the best fight choreography of the series so far, and it wraps things up nicely, and it does put a kind of cap on Mila, how do you say her name? Mila Jovovich?
I don't know.
The chick from Fifth Element. Well, they don't ever say the actor's name. How would I wouldn't know that. Why would I know that?
Well, I'm guessing you would look it up, being a fan.
I don't know how to pronounce it. I've seen how it's spelled, but it's lots of weird consonants. She's not native English, so it's a weird Eastern European / Russian name. I don't know. Anyway, Miller, that chick from the Fifth Element, you might know her as, and the Resident Evil, she's done. I don't know. Yeah, so this is like end of her story, Alice's story, which was famously the original character they created for the series of films, isn't it? She's not in the games, though. As they've done the films, they have incorporated people like Leon and Chris and Claire, Barry, Ada Wong, you name it. They found a way of getting all the iconic characters and villains as well.
Yeah, Wesker's in there.
Wesker's brilliant. Oh, Wesker is such a good adaptation of that character from the video games. He's bang on. He looks like he's literally just walked into the film out of the video games. Like he's so good. So if you literally all you've seen is half of one.
No, I've seen more. I've seen the first one multiple times because I did enjoy that one.
It's a good zombie movie. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all right. The second I saw in the cinema, it's probably the only film I've ever walked out on.
Wow, you walked out. Nemesis isn't that bad. What made you walk out? What point did you walk out? I'm curious.
Did I walk out or did I sit it out? I definitely considered walking out. I think I might have made it through, but that was a terrible movie. The worst film I've ever seen at a cinema.
Wow. The worst film you've ever seen at cinema. What didn't you like about it? I mean, it's got Jill in there. It has got all those things. Pretty good adaptation of Nemesis. You know,
I think what I didn't like about it is, oddly, one of the things that makes it most video gamey. And you know how in video games, in terms of game design, you'll often have a bunch of levels chucked together, and then someone will work out, right, maybe a story should fit this sequence of levels at some point. It's a film series that kind of molds itself to that system of design.
It really does,
yeah. So it just chucks in all the elements and then doesn't really care whether they mesh or not. All that you're interested in is, for video game fans, has it got the Nemesis in it? Because they'll like to see the Nemesis.
I kind of respect, though, how video gamey they are. They do this thing. I mean, in the one you saw half of, is one where they bring back a lot of the old characters, and it's set in a base which has these like test chambers, and each test chamber is themed differently. So there's like a Moscow one, there's like a suburbia one, there's like a New York City one, a Tokyo one.
Yeah, I saw fair bit of it, and I got
it's
the gist.
And then it does this thing that Paul Anderson has this visual style where ever since the first film, they pull back, they show like a 3D blue wireframe model of whatever facility they're in, and then they use heat maps to show the characters. And they literally break it down like stages in a video game. Like you go through one into the next, and they don't hide the fact that that's what it is. It's not like, let's try and make this in any way cohesive. You've got a MacGuffin at the end to get to, and you've got various video game levels to get through to get there. It is, yeah, they don't mess around. That is, they do that in pretty much all of the films. Like after the first one, they just don't even pretend it's anything other than that. And like I said, I like the purity of it. I like the fact that it knows exactly what it is. It's also a great showcase for some seriously badass women. Like when they introduced Claire Redfield as Ali Larter and stuff, she shows up in about 3 of the films. Her with Mila Jovovich, and the woman who plays Jill Valentine, who shows up in 3 of them, I think, as well. They're just so badass. The fact that the central characters are women and they are so capable, and they fight men all the time, and they are usually way more capable than the male characters. And I think it's a really cool example of that. Something you don't see that often in action movies. Just strong female leads.
Along with that so far, I mean, to be strong female characters, they have to appear like human beings, and characters in those movies just don't.
Well, Alice, in fairness, is kind of not meant to be a human being. Yeah. But, I think Claire pulls it off. I think her recurring character and she's pretty human, and, she has some decent character beats. But, yeah, it's not Shakespeare. I'm not trying to pretend this is like the pinnacle of action movies or anything. I mean, clearly it's popcorn fun at its worst and its most egregious. But I just kind
of hard to knock it in a way because it knows what it is. And if you were going to tell Paul Anderson what you thought of this movie, he's like, well, yeah, that's what it is. Get over it.
It's kind of like a higher quality Uwe Boll movie. Like this guy has got it right. He's got the balance of the quality, the cheese, and the nods to the franchise that the fans want to see, and he's paced it out well. And he's structured it well, much better than Uwe Boll ever did. So
it feels like he could have been a bit more ambitious with it. After so many years of video games being touted as the next big interactive, the next big narrative media, and comparing video games to movies, what's going to be the Citizen Kane of games? The old adage, and Resident Evil seems to pull it the other way. So it's like turning film into mediocre video game narrative.
But at the same time, last year was this year that was touted as this is going to be the year for video game movies, right? We're going to have World of Warcraft by Duncan Jones, and we're going to have the Assassin's Creed film starring Michael Fassbender. And I have seen neither of them yet, but for all intents and purposes, for all the reviews and stuff, they are mediocre at best. Yeah. Are they trying to be too filmic with something that is inherently a video game? I mean, I think that's where Resident Evil succeeds over them. That it is doing exactly what you'd expect and exactly what its audience wants from that franchise.
I think that's why Mortal Kombat worked, because it absolutely didn't try to do anything else. It was just a stupid story about the Netherworld or whatever it's called.
Netherrealm, yeah.
Netherrealm, the heroes and villains that exist there. They all have a fight, end of story. That's it. So it worked.
So, I mean, I was inspired to go and do this film watch, knowing the film was coming out, and off the back of playing Resident Evil 7. And never have I been more certain that fans of the game series can't hold its narrative in any kind of lofty place after playing 7. And where that story ends up is just incredibly stupid. But, it's certainly nothing special compared to these films. So let's not try and be too elitist about it. I mean, I do get that annoying. It's like, oh my God, the story in the games is so much better and all this. And it's like, no, what the fuck are you talking about? Seriously, like, not even close. Not even close. I mean,
do you think there are any games that could justify more of a filmic attitude to an interpretation of them?
I mean, they're doing a Firewatch film, supposedly.
Is that actually being made, or have they just?
Yeah, well, it's like, you don't know, do you? I mean, until it happens, it might never actually happen. But like they've said, it's happening. The studios picked up the rights, it's in pre-production, etc. But I mean, I think that could work very well.
I mean, the obvious one's Uncharted, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think that it's a mistake. That should never happen. Like, that's bad idea. Don't you think?
I agree.
Very bad idea.
Like that. Last of Us is another. I think that is close to being made, isn't it?
Again, it has been on and off. Yeah.
The ultimate for me would be BioShock, which I think we can probably not hold our breath over any longer.
I see what we did there. BioShock Underwater, hold your breath. Very good. Very good. That was lovely. The BioShock thing, well, the reason the Uncharted and the Last of Us films are stuck in development hell is because Naughty Dog are being really fastidious about what they see in the scripts and who are attached to it. And they just won't let it happen. Them and Sony just won't let it happen unless it's right.
That's exactly why BioShock isn't happening, because
BioShock's difficult though, isn't it? Because Irrational don't exist. Ken Levine does. 2K would have the rights to it. So I wonder who is actually calling the shots on that, and who would decide whether or not that would happen. Also, that would be an expensive film to make, wouldn't it? Very expensive.
It would be an expensive film to make, and I think that's where it fell down, because this is before Irrational folded, but there were discussions with Ken Levine about how much money was going to be put forward to make this movie. It just wasn't enough for what Ken Levine thinks that movie would need to be a credible representation of his story on film.
That's fair.
It's not going to happen.
That's fair enough. I also weirdly, and this sort of video game movie related tie-in little kick I did. I watched Kingsglaive, the prequel sort of to Final Fantasy 15.
Yeah, apparently this helps make Final Fantasy 15 make sense.
It gives
I
it.
See the reviews of Kingsglaive, and I read that it was preposterous nonsense within itself as well. So
I don't agree with that. I actually really enjoyed this movie, and on a more critical level, it's much better than, say, the Resident Evil films. Obviously, these Final Fantasy films, this is the third one. So we had Advent Children, the one previous, the Final Fantasy VII one, and then before that, famously, Spirits Within, which nearly bankrupt. Well, it gave Square such a kick in, didn't it, that they ended up having to kind of go in with the other. Who was the Enix bit? I can't remember. It was another studio that basically ended up buying them and buying them out, and they brought the two together, didn't they? And that's what saved Square.
It was just Enix, wasn't it?
Was it just a studio called Enix? I don't even remember, but that was what nearly ended all Final Fantasy. So was how expensive that film was. And let's be honest, Spirits Within is pretty garbage. Advent Children, I didn't. Or what's it called? Advent Rising. Sorry, not Advent Children. That's another video game. Advent Rising didn't do much for me because I don't. It was Advent Children. Advent Rising must be the video game I'm thinking of as a similar name. Yeah, that was the Orson Scott Card video game on 360, wasn't it? Advent Rising. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy that film either.
I don't have a huge connection to FF7, so I was kind of like, eh.
I kind of did. I thought I'd have an in because I really enjoyed 7. But no, I thought the film was boring. Spirits Within was underrated.
I need to go back and see it again. I think maybe it's sort of smarter than what people expected. I kind of remember it being a bit avant-garde and a bit full of symbolism and a bit art housey, and that's why maybe it's not everybody connected with it as much. So yeah, I should do a regional. Kingsglaive is brilliant. Really, really good fun. First of all, they've got a great voice cast. You got Aaron Paul is the main character, Nyx. You got Lena Headey playing the Oracle, the princess that Noctis is meant to marry in Final Fantasy 15, and then you've got Sean Bean as the king, and Lucius. And it looks stunning. The CGI is amazing. There are points where you kind of don't realize you're looking at CGI sometimes. It's that good. Absolutely amazing. And the action is badass. Basically, in Final Fantasy 15, your character, the main character, Noctis, has this ability to sort of. Have you played any of Final Fantasy 15, Richard?
No.
Right. So you have this ability that only the king and his lineage has, which is to warp across space. You throw a weapon, you throw a dagger, and then you can warp to it. Right? But you're not the only person that gets to use it. The Kingsglaive, who are this elite special forces group of the king, they have that power as well because the king kind of passes it to them. Like, it's a very active decision. So what that means is in the film, you get some incredible action scenes to do with, like, you know, this melee-based teleportation combat. So you can imagine these guys just flying around. The main character, especially Nix, and he is super, super badass and, like, really, really capable. And there's just some really cool scenes in this film. And I actually finding myself really caring about the characters. And then when you actually go back and play Final Fantasy 15, what it did was it kind of gives a more clarification on the setting, gives you a more of an onus to be doing what you're doing. There's lots of them referencing that, oh, the prince isn't here at the moment because he's doing this thing, which is the road trip you're on with your bros to go to get married, right? And then when all of the big city falls in the film, this, by the way, isn't really a spoiler because at the beginning of the game, it happens like at the end of the very first act, only a couple of hours in. But basically, the capital city falls and your father, the king, is killed. And you get basically in the game, you get like a 30-second sort of abbreviated montage of what happens in the film. And the film is 2 hours long. So it's like, yeah, the film definitely conveys the ins and outs of what happened much, much better than the 30-second little montage does. And it really does help give you an impetus and a setup and a reason to be doing what you're doing. And you know, the film, it's pretty harrowing. Everybody kind of dies in the film, except a couple of characters. And, you know, the city falls and everybody loses. And it gives you an idea that this evil empire are a truly impressive, you know, real arsehole threat that you want to deal with.
They're really going for a Game of Thrones vibe then with the cast and theme.
Yeah, I guess they kind of try to go for some quite adult kind of and mature narrative connections and threads, but the game itself is quite yeah, it's still a Final Fantasy game. You know, it's still got lots of humor and lightness to it, and it's still very breezy and approachable. And I really like the game, actually. I'm about 7 or 8 hours in now. After playing about an hour when it came out last year, I decided to start again. And about 7 or 8 hours in, and now I've got the hang of the combat and the way you work with your party. It's very accessible. The combat is incredibly easy on the surface, though I can see where depth and strategy will come into it as I start to fight harder sort of enemies and stuff. But at the moment, it's incredibly simple. You basically hold down the B button for most of it, and just auto attacks. But yeah, I really like it. It's a really, really cool game. I'm going to definitely put more time into it, but I try to use up some of my holiday time this week, which I've been off all week, and play some of that. It was good. It's a good game.
Oh, good.
Yes. Yeah. So you've been playing Arkham Knight again, or for the first time?
Kind of my third try to break into it. Because I bought the season pass. The season pass was on sale for £7.
Well, that's good. I spent 25 on it, so you know. Sure.
So yeah, I thought that was worth it, and I've played a good chunk of it now. And it's not like I wasn't into it before. It's just other things keep coming up. I was going to say about Final Fantasy 15. It sounds like it would be something I would like if I had any time. Arkham Knight's one of those that just absorbs time. There's so much in there.
Yeah.
And especially comparing it to the older games where you had Arkham Asylum, which was literally just the asylum. Arkham City branched out a bit, but it still wasn't massively open world. Arkham Knight totally is. There's just endless detail and breadth across the city, it feels like. So I've got plenty to do still, but I don't know that there's a better looking game than this on PlayStation 4. I was trying to figure out, because I've got a Pro now, is there anything that is designed for Pro that looks better than this? I don't think there is. I don't know if that's just down to the design and the way that everything's so dark and you can forgive a lot of things shrouded in darkness, but Arkham Knight still looks spectacular. And it's, 2 years old now? So
I loved it when I reviewed
I'm
it.
enjoying that.
I absolutely loved it when I reviewed it. I thought it was excellent. I mean, I really like, the lighting, you know, that wet city with neon lighting that you often find. It looks stunning.
When Batman's descending from the sky, just gliding down to Earth, and you see his shimmering cape and all the rain landing and sort of waving across with the wind. It's incredible to see. So I'm really enjoying that.
So how much have you put in? How
In
many?
terms of story, it's
Mm.
difficult to say. I've been pursuing side missions and Riddler quests quite a lot, and they're quite strange in this because a lot of the riddles are based on use of the Batmobile, which feels odd. So there's race circuits where you've got to work out the best route, and the route changes every lap, and it feels kind of Mario Kart stroke Diddy Kongy, but in Batman. So that's odd. But yeah, enjoyed it. There's lots of variety.
I know I didn't spend a lot of time on the Riddler stuff. It's one of those things you can basically completely ignore if you want. And
Yeah.
you know, I think I focused on the story. I can't remember what side stuff I did, to be honest, but I didn't have a biggest problem with the Batmobile as some people did. I thought, you know, once you upgrade it and stuff, the handling and the tankiness of it becomes, you know, perfectly usable. They did a thing with the design of it, don't they, where it's like, oh, look, this would be awkward, wouldn't it, normally? But we're basically going to give you 360-degree control. So you can basically move it like a person, like a
Yes.
turret. So like a turret on legs.
And in
So
that mode, it works. I think the way that the enemy units are set up in that game to um, sort of give you an indication of where they're going to fire. There's a predictable timing on when they will fire, and there's a really nice rhythm to it in terms of them taking aim, you dodging into the optimum position, taking your shot. Maybe you'll get it, maybe you won't, and then just that sort of back and forth between them taking their shots, you taking yours. It's almost turn-based in a way, but in a way that feels fluid and exciting.
yeah, and it does feel badass when you're bombing along in the car mode and you do the button and you fly out of it and you
Yeah,
catch and you zip up and you coming
especially
down
when
on the
you've
enemies
upgraded
and
it, yeah, and you
yeah.
can fly up miles into the air. It's really
Yeah,
good fun.
it feels fucking awesome. Like, you know,
Yeah.
the actual sensation of being Batman in that game is unparalleled. It's weird. I really didn't like Arkham City, but I thought they nailed it with Knight. Absolutely, you know, spot on the right balance for that open world and the design of it and the amount of things to do in it and it not too much side shit to distract you. And what is in there stuff like I remember the Man Bat stuff, for example, is just, you know, it's just quite a lot of story driven stuff. Even the little sort of unnecessary things have a reason to do them, which are quite fun and stuff. And yeah, I think they get it really well, you know, do it really well.
There is quite a lot of side stuff in there, but it doesn't feel like busy work. It's not Ubisoft style repeated secondary missions. There's always something slightly different about it, you know, whether it's revealing a different bad guy from Batman's past or something. It's
Yeah.
always something interesting to see. I did have a
Did
shot
you,
at the
talking about
Riddler.
Ubisoft busy work, did you play any Ghost Recon?
It didn't work for me. You know, you sent me that
Um,
invitation through.
yes.
I registered on the website and it said, like, these are the instructions to register on Xbox, PS4, whatever. And this is what you do with your code. I didn't get a code anywhere. So I don't think that they were issuing them any longer by the time you sent the invite out.
Uh,
So, you know,
I mean, in my opinion, you didn't miss much, but it feels like a cross between Far Cry and like Rainbow Six because it's got that kind of open world Far Cry-ness, but then you don't have a huge amount of damage absorption ability, and you can do a lot of like headshot based kills, and you know it's very much that kind of precision gunplay. I think, and another thing is like, right, when I get a beta like that, I'm very much aware that I'm probably going to be reviewing it. And the last thing I want to do is sink 10 hours into the beta that I then have to do again for review. And that would just break my spirit completely, having to do all that again. So I can see where emergent fun can come from that. When you've got a 4-man squad and, you know, you're calling the shots and you're setting up a takedown of a facility and stuff. I just wish it wasn't so fucking on the nose, serious military drug cartel bullshit. It's just, it feels so incredibly rote and cliche. And it takes itself so seriously, not a hint of humor, not a hint of irony in anything it does.
yeah,
And it's just,
that's Ghost Recon, though, right? Ghost Recon is serious.
Well, it's Ubisoft is what it is.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
yeah, Ghost Recon was always kind of like that.
actually,
But
that's not fair. It's Tom Clancy. That's the problem. It's a Tom Clancy game. No, and they are very, very serious, aren't they?
does it? Well, I think it was always serious, but it never really said much. It just was what it was. It was a serious
Hmm.
shooter, but it didn't have to talk about it. There was no cutscenes or characters to speak of. There was just missions. You take a bullet, you die, and it was no nonsense sort of military combat, and that was great. But if they've sort of hammed it up, and you've got all big shot heroes with big mouths, I don't know. Is that what it's like?
No, 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 no. It's all very tier one operator, and how will I describe it? Just all military jargony, and oh, these horrible cartel, and you have to take down these cartel people across the whole of weird choice here, real country choice, Bolivia. And it's basically making Bolivia to be out there to be this narco state, which is just run by this drug cartel, which is odd. Obviously, won't sell well in Bolivia, but I guess they haven't got to worry about that because there's probably not many video game consoles in Bolivia, I suppose. But at the same time, it did feel a bit strange being set in a real place. Video games don't normally do that if you think about it, especially if they're going to be so harsh on it. But I guess they're trying to lend some realism to it. But it was just the whole opening premise of this was a lot of this CIA operative who's brought you in to the country, just giving you this like incredibly like po-faced mission briefings about her undercover DEA agent who was taken out, and we're going to get revenge, and it's like we're going to fuck him up, we're going to take him out from the ground up, we're going to topple this whole organization. And it's just like I've heard it all before so many times. And it's poorly voice acted and poorly directed cutscenes, and I'm just hoping there's some polish that's going to happen on this before the game comes out, but I don't think it will particularly change.
It would have been quite nice if they'd just not bothered with that rubbish, because they got away with it in Rainbow Six Siege, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't need any of that extra stuff. It works probably because it doesn't have that extra stuff. It just does Rainbow Six really well.
The thing that the branding of Tom Clancy, I think, is the biggest problem. What that means is it has to show operatives being good, doing it for the right reason. What would have been fun was, oh, you were the Ghost, you were the best squad, a crack squad of 4 people, you've gone rogue, you're now doing things off your own back for a paycheck, right? Yeah. And then they just let you loose in Bolivia to do the highest bidders bequest. You have a bunch of different mission structures from that, and therefore it's not tied into the US being a bit weird, toppling this basically the government of another nation from the inside. Okay, slightly questionable.
We're almost in A-team territory here, Ben.
Well, yeah, an 18 type game would be fucking amazing. How much fun would that be? I mean, that's the thing, right? Self-aware, full of irony, understanding what it's doing and why it's doing it. And it's like, that would be so much more entertaining as a military shooter in the 21st century, not this po-faced thing. Maybe it will surprise us as we get into it. Maybe it will do something different. But especially the fact that the gameplay is hooked so kind of the core element is this emergent style, working with people, what random shit's going to happen when you're in there with 3 other people and everything going crazy and stuff, that element, because that's not how operators work in reality, is it? That's not how special forces really work. They don't go to the target and go, hey mate, do you see all that petrol over there? Just let it on fire and see what happens. It's going to be fucking brilliant. Just blow it all up. That's not how tier 1. At least I hope that's not how the SAS does. But oh shit, we just killed a whole village. Don't tell anyone. But we're in Bolivia, nobody cares. So I don't know. It just felt very strange, but we'll see. I mean, it seems to be the time of year for betas, because it was like last episode I was talking about the Halo Wars 2 beta, which was a bit shit, and I know. Something you put down on last episode's list of things to talk about, but we didn't get around to it because we had so much to talk about. The game is now out properly, though. Is you played like some kind of beta for Neo?
Oh, Neo is excellent. Yeah, have you tried it?
No, I've watched coverage and read stuff, and people are like losing their minds over it.
Oh, that's awesome. It's really good. It's I don't know if you'd like it though, because you're a Dark Souls guy, and it is Dark Souls, but with samurai stuff.
So I watched an hour of a video of people playing this, and I was like, this is so not my game. I I respect the fact that people love this sort of shit, but I would put this down after 2 or 3 hours and never come back to it.
Yeah, that's the fear. I mean, if I had some time, I would be buying this now. But the truth of the matter is, I've still got all 3 Dark Souls games on the go. I haven't finished one of them yet, so I don't
Get your
want
money's worth with them, don't you?
yeah, I don't want to add this to the list. But yeah, if anyone's got more time than me, Neo is a fantastic game. I put a fair bit of time into that demo, and I would love to be able to go back to it. I just don't know when I'm going to fit it in. Shame.
Why I'm gonna pivot hard now into something else, but I want to know why you give a shit or are remotely excited about a firmware update on the PS4.
Well, for anyone that doesn't know, there's a couple of new updates coming in the next firmware change on PS4. First is a boost mode for the PS4 Pro, which is notable in that it will improve games that haven't even been recoded to perform better on the Pro. So, as I
Hold on,
understand
didn't
it,
Sony say they were never going to do that? I'm pretty
yep,
sure that was something they said they weren't going to do.
yeah,
Okay.
now they've done it. So you
Okay.
flick over this boost mode switch in the options, and that will apparently improve frame rates to varying degrees in any PS4 game that hasn't been actually improved via a patch for the Pro. So I haven't seen how pronounced that difference will be. I'm going to be cynical about it for now. I don't think there will be that much difference, but
I've heard some good things actually.
really,
People talking about Bloodborne, which has got some really chunky frame rate issues at points and long load times, say
yeah.
both are significantly improved.
What I've heard is that it's going to improve consistency rather than overall frame rate, because obviously games are going to be locked at a certain frame rate as part of the game design, aren't they? So if something is 30 frames a second, it will still be 30 frames a second. It's just going to be a consistent 30 frames. It won't be dropping frames. So
I've heard one of the most egregious frame rate problem games on consoles, Just Cause as well, has had a significant bump in performance as well. So that's good to know, because that was one of the biggest problems I had with it when I reviewed it. That it was a fucking terrible stuttering mess every time there was an explosion. See, the thing is, right, I saw this story and I was like, oh shit, maybe I should think about getting a Pro. And then I went, I have like 20 games, 30 games on PS4. I have 450 games on Xbox One, and the Scorpio is just around the corner later this year. I'm going to wait for that. I'm going to wait for the Scorpio. I'm hoping that does something similar for a lot of those existing Xbox One games. And I can't imagine it won't really. Can you? I mean, that seems like it has to happen with the Scorpio, yeah?
you would think so. It's going to be more powerful than the Pro by some margin, and if it's just something that they can code, something they're going to have to put into they can just deliver via an update, Microsoft will do it. Because in terms of software updates, I think it's fair to say Microsoft are more on the ball than Sony are in that area. But yeah, talking about you having 400 games on Xbox, that's kind of why I'm excited for the HD hard drive support for PS4. External hard drive support is coming in this next update, and that's one of the big reasons why I don't buy PS4 games very often, is because it's got a fixed internal memory, and it's a real pain in the ass to swap out. I mean, you can do it. You can buy a bigger hard drive and plug it in, but who wants that faff of transferring all their stuff over?
Yeah, it's an arse ache, isn't it? That sort of stuff. Yeah,
it's a real pain. So if they're enabling just plug and play external hard drive support, that will make me buy more games. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, that's well, I don't know. My Xbox to me will probably still be my primary, but there's some exclusives on PS4 I like picking up and stuff. I, for example, just picked up not exactly performance heavy, but I really want to play it. I just picked up Abzu on PS4 because it was like £7 or something in a sale. I was like, maybe even less than that.
Is that from the guy who did Journey?
No, it's not. I mean, it's Journey reminiscent, but it's not in any way related to the developer. It just happens to have that vibe.
There's a fella.
I didn't.
Something.
Maybe it doesn't. I don't think it looks that much like Journey, but maybe, I don't know. I just really like the whole. I've heard so many good things about it last year. It was one of the games I missed, that and The Witness, that I needed to scratch off the old backlog. So I'm going to try and get some time to. I don't think it'll be a long experience, but put some time into that and play that at some point soon. But looking forward to that. Other news in the last couple of weeks. This is interesting news, actually. This is interesting news, and I think it's indicative of how much trouble they're in. The E3 is now a consumer show of sorts. I wouldn't say it's not Gamescom big, that's like 150,000 people. But starting this year at this E3, the sale of the tickets, I think, is happening this week. You will be able to buy, there's going to be 15,000 tickets available to the general consumer, so that you can just buy a ticket and go to E3. I mean, that's interesting, isn't it, Richard? I mean, it's always been this big kind of, industry event focused around the press and showing off the games to the insiders and stuff like that. But slowly,
haven't they done this before?
Never sold them openly. No, they last year they let in. They had they had guests. They called them. I think they called them like prosumers, like high, heavy end, enthusiastic individuals from various websites and stuff were given access to E3, but they never sold the tickets. And I think what the problem is E3 is having problems with revenue. More and more publishers are deciding to do their own thing. They don't see E3 as necessary. They're not showing on the show floor like they used to. Reports last year that were many of the halls at the convention center in LA were actually empty. That would normally have been full of things to show and stuff. So, it's shrinking. And I think they're trying to do this to A, get more revenue, and B, encourage those people to come back, because they're going to give them a whole new audience of people that are going to run to Twitter and do the publicity for them, based on what they see. So I think I don't know. I mean, it's not a problem, I guess. I mean, I think the thing you have to be aware of, if you're a consumer at E3, be prepared to queue. Be prepared to queue for a really long time.
If you're just watching this on a stream, which I will be as usual, it's not a detriment to me or you, is it? It's possibly a downside to anyone who wants to go, because I think they'll probably find they'd have a better experience watching at home. But
I mean,
it's nice to have the option, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the ticket prices are pricey. I think they are about 150 quid if you get them in the early bird thing. But you're buying for three whole days for the whole show. And then they go up to like 250 after the initial batch is done. So they're obviously, the people behind it are looking to make some serious money out of this. Because if you think about it, that's all of that money is just completely on top of nothing. I mean, it's not like they've increased their operating costs, is it? So they're literally, all of those ticket sales are just profit. That's just money in the bank for them, to do with as they will.
And sort of. I mean, there'll be additional costs for.
No, I don't think they will, because 15,000 people over 3 days in a place such as that isn't going to strain the resources that much. Because if you look at Cologne, that have 100,000 people, right? E3 is never even going to have that. That's never going to have those kind of numbers, in the press and stuff there, right? So 15,000 should be something I imagine they can take without too much of an inconvenience for them, I would have thought, mate. Maybe there'll be a little bit of an operating cost increase, but it's not going to be huge.
Are they selling tickets to Syrians, or is that not allowed?
A little bit political there from Richard. Talking about a sort of no-fly list thing that might have happened recently with the Trump administration. Possibly. But it was Obama who made the list, I'll have you know, Richard. That's right. It was Obama.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
He was responsible for 9/11 as well, I heard.
It's true. It's all true. Everything you hear, it's true. This is weird. Have you seen, though, we will talk about that. Have you seen what some developers and publishers how they're making stands on this shit? And Valve just came out and talked about how much bullshit this was, and how they're worried about certain members of staff that they might have to leave the country.
It's a serious problem for big tech companies, so Google, Microsoft, who've all got people from employed in all sorts of nations, haven't they, who travel back and forth to the US. So it's a real problem for them.
It's a real problem for any international business. I mean, it's like It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But we probably shouldn't go into that too much right now. But so would you be tempted to buy a ticket for E3, Richard? If you could go,
I mean,
if you could
I
go, you'd be
can't.
tempted.
I
Yeah,
absolutely can't this time, but it's always something I'd want to do.
I'd rather go to Cologne personally, but
yeah, I think I probably
how
would
about
too.
Germany?
Yeah,
Germany seems more interesting to me
just
than
a
LA.
show
In
like
place.
that is something I want to do. It doesn't matter where it is really. I just want to go to one.
Have you not even done an EGX?
No,
You've never done any kind of video game con?
I have when I was younger. I went to the Atari show.
That must have been enlightening.
Yeah, and
Space Invaders?
I saw.
What are we talking about?
I don't know. You wouldn't know. It's before your time. I saw Brian May there. That dates it.
Yes. Okay. Random though. Brian May. Why?
Well, he was with his son, like buying Atari games. I think he
Oh,
wasn't
okay.
there like for the show. He was just like.
But we need to get you. We need to get you to a con. It's certainly a thing. Yeah. It's more work than you think it is. Put it that way. But it is an experience. But I don't think this is going to change E3. I mean, it's like watching some of the big outlets cover this. This story was quite funny because there's a little bit of an element of, well, it's our club, isn't it? You can't come into our club. You don't get to come in, and this is just for the press. Yeah. You don't get to do that. And then some of them have clearly got that undercurrent running through them, but they're very carefully not saying what's on their mind, and they're trying to come up with lots of reasons why it's a bad idea and all of this. I don't see it. Like I said, 15,000 isn't a massive increase, and those people will have no back behind the scenes meetings or anything like that. So they're literally just going to be queuing up at kiosks, and the press that are there anyway, will, they don't queue, most of them. So it's like, why are they worrying? It's just don't come to our club. You're not invited. Which I just think all that actually is quite funny. Should we talk about some of the games we've been playing in the last couple of weeks for review purposes?
Can do. Should I talk about?
Yeah, I've got some interesting. Yeah, I played some of that as well. So go on, kick us off on Uncanny Valley.
What was that game I reviewed a while back? That Claire. If anyone saw
Claire,
that review.
yeah.
This reminded me of that, but it's loads better. So it's like 2D side-on survival horror thing. It's an indie project, so obviously it's kind of pixel art. This is not the usual sort of pixel art, though. It reminds me of an Amiga game in a way. It's got that sort of vibe of point-and-click Amiga games, And the idea is you're this guy called Tom. He's running away from something, although it doesn't tell you what, and he's taken a job out somewhere isolated. So bit of a Firewatch vibe. And you drive through the snow. This guy picks you up. You drive through the snow to this facility, and you're employed as a security guard. You're looking after the place for reasons unknown. You don't know what the facility is, why it's there. What exactly you're looking after, why you're looking after it, because there's no one around anyway. So it's all very mysterious, and it feels kind of like The Shining in that way as well. So already it's got lots of influences in the setup that make you feel a little bit uneasy about where this is going to go. What's really interesting about it is that it manages to be tense, unnerving, and scary just through its normality. Because it really is just for the opening moments, and it is moments because it's quite a short game that's intended to bear repeated playings. For the first few moments, it's kind of work-like. So you're introduced to your security booth. You get to stand around in your booth. You get to go back to your room and take your uniform off and go to bed. You put your uniform back on, go to your booth, have a walk around some floors where nothing happens. And it's all very nondescript, uneventful. And it sets up this kind of, well, what is going to happen to me kind of feeling. And then weird things do start happening to you. And I don't want to tell you what they are because half the appeal is in realizing, oh shit, that's going to happen. So I'm not going to tell you. But yeah, there are some moments in this. It's got multiple endings, so it does encourage you to play through for repeated tries, and it's got kind of a timing element as well. So every day that you go to work, you're on like maybe like 6 minutes is equivalent to a day. So you've got about 6 minutes during that day to do your job. Different events will come up, like you might have to turn the power back on, or you might have to talk to a particular person and befriend them. Uh, Whatever. There's different things that you can do and tick off a list of objectives, and you've got a certain amount of time to do that. So it does bear repeated play where you figure out something in one play and then you might go back the next time and realize, right, now I know what to do. I've got some time to do that, and then see where that leads. And gradually you'll uncover more and more of the story, get access to more and more of the world. And it's really, really engaging. It's got kind of the same vibe as The Fall, which I reviewed, I think, last year. So it's all a very, very dark, sinister, um, sort of black environment, and I enjoyed my time with it. I think I played through 4 times now. I think that's probably it for me. I've seen probably everything it's got to offer. I did play through it 4 times and enjoyed every one of those playthroughs. And some of the endings that you'll see, as I say, I'm not going to ruin them, but it's worth a go. Play it because you'll get through a play in probably an hour or less, and some of the endings are grim. So do it.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't quite got. I think I must be quite near one ending then. In that case, I've put about an hour in. But yeah, the tone is brilliant. It's just so oppressive and tense, and just yeah, you start developing like a paranoia. There's nice gameplay mechanics with your torch and how running works. I haven't had any combat yet, though I know there are some combat mechanics in there.
It does set you up with gun controls at the very beginning of the game, but you don't encounter that until very far in. And even then, there are playthroughs where you don't need it. Actually, you probably don't need it ever. You could get through the game without using the gun, and it never reintroduces you to those controls. So, in terms of its control design, it could do better.
Do you know one thing I really hated was the analog stick not working? That bugged me.
Yeah, because you start the game just lying down, don't you? And I thought, is this just waiting for me to do something, or
why does that game not have analog stick control? I don't get it.
Yeah, really odd. So I was there for a while just trying to stand up with the analog stick, but it doesn't work. So yeah, it's a D-pad only game.
Also, another weird thing was like there's a different button for interaction to what there is to like moving an object.
Yeah.
Which is like, why does that require a different button?
Yeah. That doesn't
a little bit odd.
Sense. And the gun controls don't really make a lot of sense either. It's like B to get your gun out, Y to reload, and then A to shoot it. But you don't get a gun until about in if you get one at all, and then you don't need to use it. To use it and you die. So,
yeah, I mean, but you can look past slightly quirky controls, I suppose, when a tone and a sort of a slightly I guess it's an implied narrative. It's not that explicit with a lot of what's going on, but I suppose it becomes a lot clearer when you've done multiple playthroughs.
Yeah, it depends who you encounter. I mean, there are a couple of characters that you can talk to. No more than that. It is supposed to be an isolated facility, but you will come across computers that you can log into, read emails, get clues about what you need to do next. There are videotapes and cassette tapes that you can find to see what's happened in this facility or hear recordings of people talking about what they're doing there. And it's all tied into that Amiga-like aesthetic as well. So the cassette tapes that you listen back to, they sound like really badly sampled Amiga speech. So yeah, they've thematically kept it all in that sort of that range. So yeah,
you've got a full review coming soon, yeah?
Yeah, that should be coming up this weekend.
I look forward to reading that actually. No, but it's definitely I didn't actually get around to playing Claire, but I'm glad you tell me it's a lot better. So
Yeah, I mean, Claire was a mess of navigation. You couldn't figure out where you were going or what you were doing. But what this does is show you exactly where you are, and you know, you in no uncertain terms, you know what the facility is in terms of like that's the lift, that's a kitchen, that's a living room, that's my bedroom. You can see everything properly, unlike Claire, which thought being dark was enough to be scary. But this shows you everything, and it's the normality that unsettles you.
I had this thing where I passed out and I controlled my character through a dream, and that dream was fucking unsettling.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Oh man, there's some weird shit in there. But it had sort of connected then in creepy games. Have you had a chance to play any more VR Resi 7?
Not this week because I've been ill, and if I'm sniffing anyone, I'm really sorry if it's annoying on the record. I'm still suffering from a cold, so no, I haven't been playing in VR.
I'm curious to get your take on that whole game when you finish it in VR or something like that. I will be intrigued to see what you think about that game. Yes, because from what I've heard, VR makes it so much better.
I was going to say, yeah. I mean, last time we
better.
talked about it, you were on kind of a downer about the combat accuracy, but from my experience and from what other people have said, it works so much better in VR.
It's not so much accuracy, feel is how I would say. I had a problem with the combat feel. More than I can aim it fine. The problems I had was with the way the guns felt. My argument being, if you're going to put guns in the game, you need to make them feel better than that. Like, otherwise, just don't. Just if they're going to feel like an afterthought that hasn't been put in properly, just don't do it. Just don't do it. But I've heard, it feels better in VR because I imagine everything's a lot more visceral, and you're probably thinking about that sort of thing a lot less. When everything's in your face. As it were.
Well, yeah, you are thinking about it less. I mean, the aiming is literally just looking at somebody.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's pinpoint. They've deliberately made it a little bit shaky. So
previous Bxb'S editor from back in the day, Mark, watched my review, and he basically said, "Well, you're not meant to be good with a gun because you're not, you're a dude. You're not some military guy or a policeman." You're not meant. The gun handling isn't meant to feel good, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but that don't play in my mind. If you're gonna, no, that doesn't work for me. To say the gunplay has a narrative reason to suck is bullshit. It's a bullshit excuse. That it's just no, that doesn't work. I'm sorry. I expect a certain quality to the way it should be in a game because of we've had 30 years of good first-person shooters or wherever it is. So, yeah.
No, I don't agree. I mean, if you're going to go that far, then you need to say how you reconcile that with what Resident Evil is trying to do, and that's to make you feel uneasy and under threat. Now, if the guns work that well, it undermines the purpose of...
No, but it's not about them. It's not about them being like super powerful at dropping enemies. It's just about it feeling like I'm holding and wielding a weapon that kills people, not a pop gun or a BB gun or a toy gun that doesn't seem to have any weight or resonance or impact.
But
do you know what I mean? It's not.
It does that. I mean, from my play of it, it feels like the guns are fine if you can land your shots. It's quite a challenge to actually land the shots. And that's the right balance, I think. If it was easy to target, you could get your headshots every time. Then the only
I got headshots. I got headshots 90% of the time, something like that, maybe. What I did find out after my review is that there is random dice rolls happening that will decide on crits. So what that means is your headshots can be more powerful randomly.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So there's shit like that. That's just like, what the fuck is that? Why have you? Again, you can't do that in a first person shooter that's trying to be quasi realistic. If it's fucking Borderlands and I can see the numbers coming off someone's head, then okay,
yeah,
fine. But that doesn't play in a game like that. It just doesn't play. But once again, I want to, we'll talk about it when you get your full VR playthrough through. But I have a sneaky suspicion this is a game that they conceived for VR, that was developed for VR, and that works best in VR.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, it is what it is. I didn't love it like some people did. I also don't think it's anywhere near as scary as it should be. But there you go. That's like last week's discussion. So I should probably bring up something of this week's discussion to talk about actually a game set in another facility, because facilities are very popular in video games, aren't they? Everybody loves a creepy facility of some kind. So you were just talking about Uncanny Valley in a facility, and I was playing a game called The Assembly.
Another VR game.
Yes, and they didn't try to sort of really do anything with this to make it not look like a VR, cheap and hurried VR port, including, the VR control method where you can teleport around the room, and not have to move. That's still in the game.
They left that in. Brilliant.
They left that in. It's got a dedicated button on the controller, so you can press a button and then you get like a representation of a person, which you can then sort of move over to the wall in front of you and just teleport straight there. It's just like the quirkiest, weirdest thing to have in what should be like a first person, just standard sort of walking around game. It's really, really strange. But basically the assembly, it's pretty good, man. It's an Unreal Engine 4 game. And, because they knew it was a VR game, the fidelity of the textures and the visuals is very, very good. Everything looks nice. You can read all the text on the walls. You can walk up to a sign and read it, natively. And all that works really nicely. Basically, it's a point-and-click adventure with some light puzzle elements. And you play as two different characters. It's a very narrative-based game, so it's going to be difficult to talk about because I don't want to spoil it. Play as two different characters. You play as one who is a new inductee into the assembly, and another one who is a scientist who's been working at the assembly for some time. And the inductee is where most of the puzzles come from, because she's being like tested as she is being brought in. Like, are you good enough to be a member of this this entity, this facility, this corporation? And the other guy is basically investigating the use of a previous project of his, which he thinks is being twisted and used in nefarious ways behind his back. So it's it's cool, man. It's got a fun, it's an interesting hook. The game looks really nice. It's a lot of walking around, opening drawers, looking for stuff, which you kind of expect in an early VR game. It plays fine. I mean, it's fine. It's fine in that regard. It feels a bit weird because, like you said, it should be a VR game. So having the teleportation mechanic in there is funny as fuck. But the normal first-person controls work fine. But it's definitely about the story. And I'm intrigued to keep going and finishing it and doing the review when I've beaten the story, because, like a Firewatch or an Oxenfree or anything like that, these games, they either work or they don't based on the strength of the narrative. I will say the voice acting is very, very good. The dialogue has been very well written. The two characters are interesting and have interesting backstories. And the more I find out about them, it seems like a well-observed, some well-written scientific kind of concepts and jargon and processes that do feel very realistic. I'm not a scientist. My brother is. I'm going to ask him about it and see if he thinks it's realistic. I think it's, a really cool little experience. I'd not really heard anybody talk about until the code popped up in an email, and I was like, oh, I'll give that a shot. That sounds kind of cool. But yeah, that's the assembly.
Yeah. I keep looking at it on PSVR because it's available on PSVR as well.
We should get. I'd be great if you got it and gave me some game. Maybe we could talk about it from the VR perspective as well. That'd be how expensive is it on PSVR? Rough, do you know, or top of your head?
I think it retails at £20. I've seen it cheap.
Okay.
So it's one of the sort of mid-tier price VR experiences. Most are £15 or less, or the odd one goes up to 50.
I think, from what I've played, that sounds fair, because there's clearly a lot of work has gone into it. The environments are very well designed. Like I said, the fidelity is really nice using the UE4. It looks good, like really good. And the voice acting is top notch, high quality, professional production. It doesn't feel like a little indie game. It feels like something a AAA team would do on the side, or as an experiment.
How long is it?
Yeah. I think it's meant to I did actually look it up, like howlongtobeat.com or something like that. There's a website where you can look up how long it takes to finish a game. It said about 4.5 hours.
Right.
So Yeah, that price is right on the level there. I like, it's kind of like, could go either way, couldn't it? Depending on how you enjoyed it, I suppose.
Yeah, that's the thing with VR experiences. I do like giving them a crack, but more often than not, they're fairly short. So if it's more than 15, 20 quid, then you start thinking, what is the value proposition here?
Well, yeah, it's like replayability. I can't really see there being any of that in this at all. Once you've beaten this and you've got the story, I don't think there'll be any reason to go back. Because like the puzzles I've experienced so far are like one and doneers. Like once you've beaten them, there's nothing you can take away from it. But there's some cool ideas in there though. I'm enjoying it so far.
So
okay,
if the puzzles work in themselves, then do they're not just an excuse to play with the VR technology?
Seem to work in themselves, yes. Yeah, I mean they're cool. There's some cool ideas. There's some cool stuff in there. I shall move on though to Kill the Bad Guy, which I won't talk about for long because it's quite a slight experience. Do you know anything about Kill the Bad Guy, Richard?
No.
It's a puzzle game, right? And the concept is you work for this extra governmental agency, goes around and kills people that have got away with horrific, horrendous, awful crimes. So you're like the Punisher, but with fiendish traps rather than just shooting them. So basically, there'll be like this guy who was a war criminal and killed 20,000 people in his native nation and has now escaped to the West, and you're going to take him out. And it's all done through this stylized sort of isometric view, like God's eye view for you. You're looking down, and they all the bad guys look the same. They all have this. I guess what they're doing is they're using an avatar to represent the enemy. Put it that way. So they look
the same. How true to life.
and then you basically have to set off. You have to basically plan. The guy will walk through a route through a level every time, and you have to think of ways to kill him in the level. So it can be something as simple as you hack a car and then drive it into him, and it runs him over. Or you can suspend a piano above the street and drop it on him. Or you can take control of a crane with a wrecking ball and smash it into him. And then, as the game progresses, in this sort of mobile-esque developmental structure, you get the star ratings and you unlock the subsequent levels, and each subsequent level builds on the one before, adding more twists and getting more difficult. But the concept stays the same, other than some bonus levels which will maybe twist it around a little bit. Where, for example, there was a bonus level I was playing where it was like a zombies, and I had to kill 40 zombies before they reached me at the end point of the level, and then I'd have died. So I had to then set up traps more quickly and stuff. You couldn't just reset it. You had to be like, that wasn't actually that much fun, because I think that the fun element of the game is working out what's in the environment, working out how to use that creatively to kill the bad guy. And that's what this game is. So it's like it's got a good look. It's got Hitman, but you're not in it. You're not in the level yourself. You're like God's eye view. You're basically this force that affects the surroundings to kill the dude, kill your target, kill the bad guy.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm going to try and play a little bit more of this.
Cross with lemmings.
Yeah, that's not a bad way of putting it. That kind of makes sense. Yeah. And it's got this very clean white aesthetic. It almost feels like it's like trying to say it's like a training facility almost. I don't know if the only time you only get any story is in the loading screen, right at the minute. There's like flavor text, usually about 5-6 lines, and it's well written and humorous stuff that gets across why that particular bad guy has to die. And each level has different flavor text, which I quite like. There's clearly some thought and creativity has gone into that, though that's not really story. It's more like a setup that each level is different. And so each level is very much a self-contained experience. The only sort of progression you get is building upon what you're learning about how objects interact with each other, and how you can do different things with different, some of them aren't obvious, like a rope with a tree, and then you can pick up another object and put it on the tree. In one case, I put a dog on the tree, and then I cut the rope, fired the dog at the guy. The dog exploded on impact into lots of bits, but also killed the bad guy.
Who hasn't done that?
Yeah, I guess that's a common form of murder. Now I think about it, yeah, it happens quite a bit. But it's fun and it's silly and it's tough and it's hard. And, some of the stuff is quite difficult. I've definitely got stuck on certain levels, and it has a nice eureka moment, when you get it and you work out what you got to do. Usually through trial and error more than actually like logic puzzles or anything like that. You just end up clicking, click, click. Does that interact with that? No, it doesn't. It's kind of in that way, like almost like a point and click adventure game where you're just like taking every object and seeing if it will interact with another. But I like it. I think it's quirky and fun, and I'll have a review for that as well soon. Cool. Any questions or anything about any of this so far? Otherwise, I'll go onto my final game, which I played.
The last game.
Onto my last game. I do. It's the problem. There's just two of us, and I played all the games. I end up kind of monologuing. But yeah, if you want to interrupt at any point, please do. Now, this game is interesting. This game is interesting because of the controversy that came up around it before I actually got a code to play it. So I was like aware of this before playing it, which I think was a little bit unfair in a way. This game is Dead Effect 2. Did you hear about any of this controversy, Richard?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so
Tell me.
I didn't get this code directly from the developer. Code from Xbox, as I get quite a few codes, which is brilliant. That's how it works sometimes. And so therefore I never interact with him. So I didn't get this letter that he sent to the people that asked for codes directly from him. Or Badfly Interactive. I don't know necessarily. This was the form response that was sent to everybody. I don't know exactly who wrote this. Part of the controversy is saying maybe this was the PR company. But basically, he goes, we're a small little indie developer, please consider this game when you're reviewing it in the light of the fact that we're a small team and, therefore, we don't have the production levels of a AAA kind of thing. And that's like, oh, yeah, sure. Obviously understandable. And then at the end, he wrote this. This was taken verbatim from what was sent out to critics. Also, we're working on several other games that are definitely interesting. And if your review or preview of Dead Effect 2 is very negative, you won't receive any keys from us in the future.
That's a mistake.
That sounds a lot like a threat, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Doesn't that sound like a threat saying we're going to blacklist you if you don't give us a good review? And it's a bit like, oh, dude. They, in fairness to them, they immediately when this was pointed out to them as a bad move, retracted it, apologized, did all of that, pointing out that we're a small indie studio. That's what they were trying to do, and that lesson learned. English isn't their first language, and lots of excuses like this. And I kind of understand where they're coming from. That what they're trying to say is that, and what they say in their statement in reply to this sort of controversy was that we don't want to throw more good code after bad. We don't want to send code out to people that are just going to be dicks, that are doing that whole kind of what they're looking at. I think there is things like Jimquisition, right? Jim Sterling stuff, where he will just get on a game and to be fair, they're always terrible games that deserve this, but then he will just ride it into the ground and he will just tear it apart, and there are copycats that I think maybe don't have the same level of understanding of the industry and the understanding of development that like Jim Sterling, and that they're just ripping into shit because it's fun and because they can get hits. So they don't, Badfly.
That's the difference. I don't think Jim Sterling does it for fun.
No.
He does.
No. But what Badfly are worried about are those types of people. You're wasting code on them,
Yeah.
Wasting code on them.
Yeah.
And I see
get why they'd want to do it. I totally get why they'd want to do that, but by the same token, you can't. It's obvious. You just can't.
You can't. You shouldn't write that in an email to developer, to a critic or a video game blogger or a guy on Twitch or anybody, because it's just like, oh, you're threatening them, and it's like, what do you know? God, somebody should have run that past somebody, maybe an native English speaker, and got it proved or something, because it just, that blew up a little bit a few weeks ago. So when I got this game, I was kind of curious about it anyway. Basically, Dead Effect 2, sequel to Dead Effect, which I didn't really know about, but it's like a horror sci-fi first-person shooter. So think kind of like a Dead Space.
I was thinking Dead Space. I was thinking a cross between Dead Space and Mass Effect.
No, not so much the Mass Effect. More like Dead Space and like Fear.
Right.
I guess would be the two that come to mind, like mixing them up. And look, I'm talking about this controversy, but you have to call a spade a spade. You know, this game isn't great. I mean, for a start, it looks pretty shonky. It's got some really, really bad UI design throughout, like from main menus to quick inventory menus. Everything. The UI is fucking terrible, confusing. But at the same time, there is some fun in there. It's a first-person shooter, like I said. The biggest problem. I was talking about how gunplay felt in Resident Evil, right? This makes the gunplay in Resident Evil feel like fucking Call of Duty. The biggest problem that the gunplay in Dead Effect 2 has is that when you pull the trigger, there is a noticeable delay between pulling the trigger and the gun going off.
Oh no!
Every single time, and it's not like a nanosecond, right? It's noticeable. You get kind of used to it the more you play, but that's not good. That's just like fundamentally wrong. If you're gonna make a first-person shooter, there shouldn't feel like there's any latency from the input to the action on the screen. For Christ's sake, man! If you're gonna do one thing right, you need to do that. That's the one thing. However, like I actually started to get into the whole terrible voice acting thing, the whole this has clearly been written by non-English speakers element to it. It becomes really silly and very stupid. And look, blowing away 50 zombies that are charging at you, you know, with a shotgun is fun. It's a fun thing. There are enemies, however, that are like soldiers with guns. Fighting them is less fun. But fighting like the monsters and the creatures, that feels good. You know, blowing limbs off, and they've got different types of monsters and creatures. It's quite an ambitious game, actually. It's not just a linear single-player experience. There's this hub where you have different characters that can do upgrades, and you can get different armor, and you can get different guns, and you can upgrade the guns, and you can upgrade your character. You get special powers. You can then there's like different ways of playing the game. So you've got the single-player missions, then there's like horde missions, and then there's replayable missions. So there's just like RPG elements throughout the game as well. So maybe, to be honest, maybe your joke about Mass Effect earlier wasn't that far off. Maybe that was the initial inspiration, because these guys are really shot for the moon with their game design. They've really tried to do a lot here. And I think what they should have done, perhaps, would be, instead of trying to do all of it, all these, you can see them, can't you? You can see them all getting around, going, hey, we're going to put this in. Yeah. We're going to put that in. We're going to do this and that and that and this and this and this. And, oh, that all sounds awesome. Let's do it. And then, oh, there's only 4 of us or whatever. All right, well, we can't spend that much time on the shooting because we need to build the hub. Or we can't spend that much time on the voice recording or the writing because we need to do the sound effects, because, you know, we've got every monster sounds different and all this stuff, all these ambitions. And they've just tried to do too much when really they should have just focused on making it feel like a good shooter first and then seeing what they could do with it. And I love, you know us at Bxb, we love indies that are ambitious, don't we? We love that. We love to see people striving for the moon with their game design and really going for it. And these guys have really gone for it, but they just haven't pulled it off. And it just feels bad. I mean,
because obviously they would have put a lot of effort into it.
Oh God, yeah, you can see the effort. Yeah, man.
If their inspiration is so brazenly other games that they just want to be a bit like, I'm just looking at the box art now, and I'm not far wrong on the Mass Effect thing, because the logo for Dead Effect 1 is the Mass Effect logo.
Cool.
Just check out the typeface; it's the same.
All right, I'm gonna Google that right now. Yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah, it's Dead Effect 2.
Oh, Jesus Christ! Yeah,
it's exactly the same, isn't it? And Dead Effect 2 has got the Dead Space typeface, pretty much. So, yeah. They're wearing their influences on their sleeves.
Oh, I think this might be, looking at some of this, perhaps this was a port, like a port from mobile, perhaps? Because, yeah, iOS in 2013. This is for the first game. iOS 2013, Android 2013, Windows 2014. So these games actually started off as mobile games. And that does explain a little bit about the UI. And it also explains about the fact that the shooting isn't tuned to feel great, like in a conventional shooter. Because if you're playing it on iOS, it's probably a much more forgiving platform for a little bit of input delay. You're not going to notice it as much, are you? As you will if you're playing it on console. You're not going to hold it to as high as standard.
No. firing on a touchscreen is going to be fire on release, isn't it? So there'll be that delay from the input. So,
I mean, so
I guess that's why
that
that's
gives
happening.
me, yeah, that gives me. So yeah, iOS and Android was, God blimey, for Dead Effect 2, 28th of October 2015. Windows was February of last year. Xbox One was January this year. So to be fair, look, they ported that 6 months after the portable version. They got it on PC, right? And then a year later than PC, it came to consoles. So it's not like there wasn't a huge amount of time there to tweak and improve and to actually make it play decently on the platform. So it's not like a quick port. So that I don't think forgives everything, though it does explain where some of the design elements originate. I think I like the setting. So you're in the spaceship, right? And this spaceship is traveling vast distances to colonize another Earth-like planet. And because of that, and the lack of like oversight that happens on the ship, crazy experiments have happened because they haven't got to follow the laws and stuff. So that's why you've got monsters. That's why you've got like a super soldier characters to fight them. There are 3 different fully voiced playable characters in this game. That's the level of ambition here, right? So you can play as any of those 3, and they're voiced differently with different dialogue, right? So like, god damn it, you've got NPCs you can talk to with dialogue trees, all fully voiced. It's all terrible voice acting, and it's all badly written, but it is all fully voiced. And like, there's so much ambition in this game. It's just boiling over with concepts and ideas that even a AAA studio would be like, oh, hold on, we might need to cut that because I don't think we're going to be able to pull that off as well as the rest of it, you know?
It seems like it's just on the wrong platform then, don't you think? Because that's the sort of thing where if it was on an iPhone or whatever, you'd think, even if it doesn't quite work, look at this, it's on a phone. Look at all of this stuff. And it'd be pretty cool. But on an Xbox One or PS4, the competition's too high.
I imagine the character design and the graphics and stuff would look good on a mobile as well, but on a 1080p TV, it just looks like it looks like a game. Well, it came out, right? So it came out, this one, in 2015. So that's 2 years ago, right? Coming up on 2 years ago, 18 months ago on a phone. So it's looking dated because of that. So when it was originally designed and put together, and clearly they've tried to up-res textures and things like that. They've got the highest resolution stuff that they would have had from that development, but yeah, it doesn't look right on consoles either. I mean, it's not got. There's nothing about it that stands out as good. Everything. I think the best it ever gets to is like, it works. It's serviceable, and then there's a lot of stuff that then drags it down off of that as well. It's a curious little experiment though, and I don't hate Badfly for anything. It'd be interesting to see what they do in the future actually, because I love that ambition that's on display there. I just think they need to shine get the polish out and really, really shine it up before you put it out on a major console or Windows platform. Yeah, it's just not good enough.
If that's what they've done and it's kind of a mobile port, then it makes me even less sympathetic about their approach to critics. To not saying anything negative about it, because it's quite a cynical move in the first place to release a game that is meant for mobile on a home console.
Yeah, wow, how much are we seeing that nowadays? Oh my god,
just fly. I mean, it's like the game loft games that you get on mobile devices.
Yeah,
we know they're knockoffs of Call of Duty and Halo and whatever. If they were ported to Xbox One, how would they go down? I mean, it's fine on a phone, isn't it? What are those Call of Duty knockoffs that they do? What are they called?
Oh, it's not like Infinite War or something like that, or no, I can't. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
But anyway, they do something that's blatantly ripped off from Call of Duty. And if they brought it out on a device that has Call of Duty, that ain't working. And this is what this feels like. It's probably fine on its home turf, but not on an Xbox.
It's a good point. When you've got comparisons of high quality first person shooters, and there's not like there's a shortage of them. Why would you spend the money on this? Why would you buy this?
Yeah.
It's something. I mean, what it is a little bit reminiscent of as well is Doom, and it's just like, but it's just really bad Doom, like really, really, really bad Doom. The visuals actually remind me a little bit of Doom 3. They look about as good as Doom 3. And you think about when that came out. So,
fair.
It's not great.
Yeah, I did think Doom. I bet you can pick up Doom, the new one, for like 10, 15 quid now. So
you should. You damn well should.
Between the I'd go for.
I'm trying to find out where Badfly are based actually right now. I think it's someone like, I think they're Polish possibly. Yeah. Oh no, Czech. They are Czech. They are from the Czech Republic. There you go. Bolivia. Yeah, the narco state. That's where they're making it. It's actually one giant advert for this game will be so much better if you've taken loads of cocaine. Like loads of it. And then just tons, mountains of it. So that thing brings us to the end of the games and stuff. How have you found our little date, Richard? Has it been nice?
Yeah, I think I'd do it again.
You do it again. Maybe next Valentine's Day we'll do another podcast, just the two of us, just to be romantic. And I didn't get the candles though. I did, however, get your present, and it's an impressive foot long. I don't want to put it on camera because I might frighten some of the people with the weaker sensibilities. So I don't want to.
For them.
It's just meant for me.
That's it. Just between us.
It's very private. And I think before we go, something I don't think we did last time, but we had so many games to talk about last time. Shout out to the other sterling creators putting out content on Bxb Games at the moment. So Stephen has done a couple of reviews. He really, 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 really liked Westerado Double Barreled, and I can also confirm that is a fucking great game. Have you played any Westerado Double Barreled on Xbox or anywhere else, Richard?
No.
It's cool, man. It's like this 2D pixel art Red Dead Redemption where you basically have to go around like doing quests and talking to people and finding the killers of your family and who burnt and it's randomly generated. So because it's pixel art, you've got like different colored hats and shirts and trousers and shoes, right? So the more people you talk to, they'll give you like one element of what they were wearing. Like they'll tell you their shoes were green, right? So you then have to find out what color the shirt was, but then you can accuse and then shoot any NPC in the game at any time. Be like, you're the one that burnt down my house and killed my family. Boom, blow him in the head, shoot him away.
That's great.
And that might not actually be the right person.
Guess who with guns? So cool. Why has no one done that before? Yeah,
basically guess who with guns. Yeah, that's a fucking good way of describing it. It's really, really cool. It's a really, really cool game. And Stephen loved it as well. I did a review of that. And he also did a review of Momonga, which only went up today. Pinball Adventures. I literally have no idea what that is, other than it has a panda in it and something to do with pinball, but I'm confused by. Do you know anything about that, Richard?
Well, I proofed the review, and apparently it's a pinball game with a flying squirrel, which is like is a Momonga a type of flying squirrel? I think so, but apparently there's not that much flying in it. It's mainly pinball. So
okay,
a missed opportunity to fly about as a squirrel, which we are still waiting for in 2017. Someone developed that game.
Always. Now this is really cool, and this is actually coming. This is a game that's coming to game preview on Xbox in the spring, so some point in the next couple of months. But trust me, I have watched a lot of Cameron playing this on Twitch now because he's streaming it under the official Bxb Games Twitch, which can be found at twitch.tv/Bxb Games. And he's been streaming and did an early look at Conan Exiles, and this looks fucking awesome. I absolutely can't wait for this to come to Xbox One. So it's dark fantasy set, in the Conan universe, but it's also got a vibe of like a bit of Ark about it. So like building and scavenging and building up a city with other people if you wanted. And also like there's player versus player, and there's lots of different creatures in the world to fight and scavenge, and it just looks really well done. I'm really excited to see that come to Xbox, and I look forward to playing it. I only gave him the code because my PC couldn't hope to play that. Otherwise, I'd have been all over it. I do love a bit of Conan. So that's looking fucking sweet. Like really, really, really good. He also did a review. Go on.
I was going to say it's good to hear because Conan's been a bit hit and miss when it comes to video game interpretations, hasn't he?
It has a bit, yeah. I don't really remember there ever being a particularly standout great one, to be honest, off the top of my head. Cameron also reviewed this weird game, Don't Chat with Strangers, which seems like this very small little indie game in which it's like point and click, kind of like a chat interface where you're talking with someone online, a stranger online, and weird supernatural shit happens, and you get murdered in various different ways if you don't give the correct response. Odd game, but looks quite interesting. Joel, of course, who was here with us 2 weeks ago, also did the full review of Subterrane, which he talked about extensively, me and him, on the show 2 weeks ago, and he loved it, like we knew, and gave it, I believe, a 5-star review there. Worth mentioning here, actually, Richard wasn't present for this because he was a sick, poor little bunny rabbit a week ago. But we actually recorded, and it's in this feed as well, we recorded our first ever Bxb'S Shoot the Shit, our wrestling podcast. Richard, you listened. What did you think?
Thought it was good. Yeah. I was bummed out I couldn't be on it because it's all about Royal Rumble, wasn't it? I really enjoyed
Royal
it.
Rumble, yeah.
So, yeah.
You enjoyed the Royal Rumble? Like, really?
Yeah, I did.
Really? Even the Rumble?
Well, the event itself had some pretty good matches. The Rumble itself...
It did, except the Rumble. The Rumble was terrible. But...
Well, I don't think it can ever be terrible. I always love the Rumble, however bad it is. I mean, number...
Oh, this was really bad, though.
Yeah.
Really bad.
Number 30 was pretty bad.
So bad.
I did win 40 quid, so
oh!
not a bad Rumble for old Richard.
How did you win 40 quid? What did you bet on?
Got kids to bet tenner each, didn't I? Sarah betted a tenner as well.
And you picked Orton?
I drew Orton.
Oh, you drew him. Oh, that's lucky. Jesus Christ, mate. Nice one. Nicely done indeed. You also reviewed Shantae, didn't you?
Yeah. Did we not talk about that last time?
I think we did. I'm just looking through the site right now, to be honest. Sorry. Adam reviewed She Remember Caterpillars. He's not here today, but make sure you check out his review. It's always good and worth checking out. Very well done video review. I think that brings us up to date. Yes, it does. The next few weeks are crazy for video games. like there is so much coming out. Can I remember? Let me think of it off the top of my head. I might have to check an email because I was talking to somebody about this. But Sniper Elite, the new Sniper Elite game is out. That's one of them. Sniper Elite 4. I mean, 3 was actually excellent. Did you ever get around to playing Sniper Elite 3?
Yeah, I did. I played it a bit because it was on... Was it Games with Gold?
Xbox.
Yeah.
Oh, was it? Oh, no, it was on Xbox, though. It was, wasn't it? It was 360, and then they did an Xbox One port, didn't they? That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I played the 360 one because that was Games with Gold. But, that was all right.
Okay. We got that. We got For Honor, which I dabbled in the beta on PlayStation, actually, a few days ago, and immediately realized I sucked so bad at this game. Like, that is not a game for me. I am going to... If I play that, I'm just going to get annihilated, like, repeatedly. So the concept of For Honor is basically medieval versus Viking versus samurai sword fighting in a multiplayer setting. And have you played any of it, Richard?
No, of course not.
The only reason because it's all to do with like positional combat. So basically, you can hold your sword either high guard, left guard, or right guard. Yes, like the shaving company. And then from that position, you can either. Do you like that? Yeah. So if you just leave it in that position, it'll block an attack, right? From the equivalent from your opponent coming in from the right. You're holding to the right, you'll block it, right? If, however, you can also then attack. So it's this kind of like chess. So you're faking out. You can see what they're holding in, right? So you go over to them and they're like, oh, he's got a top guard, right? So you come in from the right, but he switched at the last minute and he's blocked me. So there's a lot of like feints. There's like disruptive attacks. There's trying to deal with multiple attacks from different opponents at the same time. It is... I just got destroyed, Richard. I can't even begin to tell you how much I was murdered. I played for about an hour. I did all right against the AI and stuff. And you can play I think pretty much all the modes against AI. However, when I went and played against real people, there's been multiple betas and alphas at this point. I don't know if they'd just been good at them and been playing for a while or what, but in this beta, I was just dead. Like, I couldn't even land a single hit. I just felt very old and very bad.
Yeah.
So that was...
Welcome to my life.
We've got Halo Wars 2 in the next couple of weeks as well. I think that's next week. Hard to get excited about that, though. Richard.
You really messed up then. Like,
Did I?
Wi-Fi wise. You turned it to a freeze frame.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I was just saying, Halo Wars 2 is coming up, and they're doing quite funny comedy marketing videos. Have you seen any of those?
No, I haven't. I've not
They're
really
doing...
paid attention. You know,
So
for the past 2 weeks, I've been looking at Nintendo Switch videos every day and nothing else, because that's in 2 weeks' time.
God, it is, isn't it? Start of March, yeah. I don't feel excited in the slightest, but I'm glad you are. These comedy videos for Halo Wars 2 involve things like Atronox, which is the brute guy, and Cutter, I want to say, or something like that. Carter, maybe, is the Earth guy, and it's like, I'm going to outthink him over this situation, and it's like buying a used car. So there's these two Halo characters over this old used car, and it's like, he's offered me this price. I'm gonna do that. Like, I'm gonna pretend to walk away, and it's like he's doing like an internal monologue throughout it. It's quite amusing. And then the other one was on an airplane, and they're sat next to each other in an airplane, and he takes the armrest from him, and it's like, I'm gonna use this strategy to get the armrest back. I'm gonna stare at him until he gets weirded out. It's quite funny, but also shows no gameplay, has nothing to do with an RTS, and really, I like the fact that it's different, but it also screams this game isn't going to sell anything. Like, they are shitting themselves about how no one is going to buy Halo Wars 2. But we'll see, I suppose. I don't think it's going to do very well.
No.
And then
it killed its last studio, so
yeah. If I was Creative Assembly, I'd be worried. And then finally, yeah, like we were talking about a minute ago, the beta just finished. But Ghost Recon Wildlands will be out as well. So, and then after that, Mass Effect Andromeda at the end of March. And that's ignoring, like you said, the Switch and Zelda and whatever other launch games they can scramble together at the last minute that are probably indies that have been out for 2 years.
Horizon Dawn.
Oh God, weirdly, I know the buzz has been really good about that, but I do not feel excited for that game in the slightest.
Then you're mentally ill, Benjamin, because it's the best looking game of the first half of the year.
And maybe it's because I don't have a PS4 Pro and I'm worried that it's not going to look great on my OG PS4. Maybe it's because I just don't care about another big open world game right now.
Oh, it looks so good though. It looks like a proper different.
Yeah, but why does it look? Why does it look good? What part of it looks different to you? I mean, they were describing. I was listening to coverage about it, and they were describing how, there's this giant walking dinosaurs with these long necks, and you can get up to the top, and you can take them, and when you take them, it reveals the map. And I just went, oh, so it's a tower, like in Assassin's Creed, like in every other open world game ever.
Did you not watch the early videos of it though?
Yeah, I mean, the hunting combat stuff looked interesting, but it didn't really grab me. I mean, that's one small element. Some of the things I'm not a fan of. I don't like the character design that much. I don't like the setting, the post-apocalyptic setting has, since that was originally announced, has already started to feel unoriginal because there's quite a lot of that happening at the moment. So I don't know. I mean, I might, maybe when Mass Effect's out of the way and stuff, maybe for the summer I'll pick it up or something. If we get a quiet period in the middle of the year, we'll see. But yeah, I'm not super hyped. I'm not super hyped. But yeah, like you said though, another big release though in the middle of all this. Like, that's March 1st in the UK, I believe, Horizon. Yeah. So it's so many games for this point in the year. It's crazy. So yeah,
this period used to be dead. Man. So yeah,
yep,
amazing.
You'd be dead from about late January through till like September was very quiet, wasn't it? Really, let's be honest. So yeah, I'm glad that's gone away and that games are paced and spread out a bit more throughout the year now. I think that's really good. But crazy that we've got so many big releases coming in fucking late February and March. Bonkers. So we're going to be busy. Lots of games to play. Exciting times. So make sure you stick to BXB Games in all the places you can find us. So on Twitch, on Twitter, and Facebook, we are BXB Games. Easy to find. We have a BXB Games club on Xbox One, also called BXB Games. We have a BXB Games Beam streaming service, which I will be setting up shortly on one of my. We do. I've set it up, and it will be associated with my console at some point soon, so I can start doing that. Because I get the impression the Xbox guys are kind of dropping Twitch, so I feel like they're moving to their own platform, which is Beam. That's a Microsoft company thing. So, so we try and beam out. Christ knows what that means, but I'll be giving that a go soon. So I'm trying to think, is there anybody else, anywhere else we're at? I can't remember.
PlayStation group.
PlayStation group, which I basically never log on to the PlayStation, so I almost always forget that's there. But yeah, there is one. There is one. Is that BXB Games as well, or is that just BXB? I can't remember.
BXB Games, I believe.
Oh, cool. I changed it. Well done, me. And I am, of course, at DIYE on Twitter. Richard is at Colonel Red. I think that brings us to the end of the show. A little bit shorter than usual, as we're under 2 hours. That's an hour and...
I thought we might struggle to go that long, actually, just the two of us, because I'm notoriously quieter than you. But
oh, don't worry, mate. If I could do a show by myself and go 2 hours. So... I can just waffle, mate. I just shit comes to mind and I'm just putting it out there. But we're back in 2 weeks. We're obviously talking about a lot more video games. The wrestling podcast will be less consistent. We'll try and look, if Elimination Chamber is amazing, tomorrow night, we might throw one together next week. We'll see what happens. It depends if it blows us away with cool, twisty revelations. You never know, it might. And hopefully Richard, you'll join us for that, which would be nice.
Woohoo!
Okay, so that's the end of Bxb'S Bits and Bobs, episode 19. We will see you in 2 weeks with episode 20, which is a pretty impressive milestone. Look forward to that, and I look forward to talking to you all. Bye-bye!
Bye!